So thank you very much. We're very glad that you could take the time to attend with us on this webinar, Manufacturing Tactics to Mitigate Lockdown and Position for Recovery. We ask that everyone stays muted during the session. You're most welcome to use the chat option. Put down any questions that you would like to ask. Ari, would you mind just sharing the screen, your presentation, so long? All right. So as you can see on the overview, we will be doing this in two sessions or two parts. The first is the tactics part. I will try and explain the context around these tactics. So I will try and show where these developments or these techniques, that they're much more powerful than just to get you the results as we promised in the flyer. If you use them properly, you can deal with a lot more of the issues that you are having to face day to day in your manufacturing environment. And then in the second part, Ari will go into the details, and he will go through the tactics themselves, but he will also explain the principles and the operation that he's developed that is based on top of the theory of constraints to get the employees and managers to think and to operate differently, which I think is a crucial part in any intervention. And you will see how this aligns the organization towards a common vision and how it builds the trust that we need for success and how it does it very quickly. So we have a very wide audience today. It looks like it's more than 50 people, and they are still coming in. Some of them are theory of constraints expert. We've got a few complexity experts. And then I think we've got many managers that are just keen to find something to make their work environment and their companies more successful. So with that in mind, we're going to try and keep the discussion simple. And so for the experts, if we oversimplify things, please bear with us. It's to keep the audience in mind so that they don't nod off and fall asleep. Ari, the next slide, please. All right. So about Ari, I first met Ari in 2009 when I was a director in a manufacturing company, and Ari came to help us implement a theory of constraints, which was pretty successful. And then in 2014, he asked me to help him with his work in mining. And I remember the first intervention very well. I mean, the mine was having great difficulty in meeting its operational targets. It had to drastically increase the production volume and its productivity to stay viable. The operations team was not performing well, and from the body language of everybody present, I could see that they were very aware of the fact that they were not performing. And to make it worse, the rest of the mine knew that very well also. So within about 4 months, the output had lifted by more than 30%. Engagement of everyone in operations was sky high. And to tell the truth, we actually spent very little time compared to what you would expect on the mine. We actually achieved these results by getting the people and the management to do the things that needed to be done themselves. And well, so at the end of the year, they won the prize for the most productive mine in their group and also best safety. So I thought, well, maybe this was just lucky. You know, maybe it's the 1 out of 1,000 hit that we did. And then we went for the second intervention on another mine, and we improved on even those results. And that's when I realized that this way of working is too good to hide. The world needs to know about it. And that's why we have Ari here today in this conversation with you. So just something else about Ari. He's got more than 25 years of experience in theory of constraints, more than 100 operations in many parts of the world, delivering remarkable results. I would say his expertise lies in finding unique solutions for production flow lines in manufacturing, fabrication, construction. And Ari is, of course, famous for the 3-bottle experiment video on YouTube. I think it's been viewed more than 140,000 times. Next slide, please, Ari. About myself, so I'm a consultant. I work from Sydney. I've done work with companies like Qantas, John Holland, CPB, Downer, Anglo American. And I try and combine the best from theory of constraints and complexity science to deliver breakthrough results. So I've done work on manufacturers, and as you've seen, many construction companies. And then I've also worked in safety, productivity, and I've published in various journals on efficiency and innovation. The next page, please, Ari. Okay, that's it. So I think few of us would disagree that the business environment has become very challenging. And with the advent of the internet, we've got information in the hands of our customers, and they're now spoiled for choice. Competition has intensified over the years. And now I think for the last few months, on top of all of that, we have demand and supply that are fluctuating wildly. And I think it's safe to say that the supply chains are under pressure. And the manager's job has become really hard. Next slide, please, Ari. So the current instability, I would say, is extreme, but we've been trending upwards for years. So on Google, that's a picture that you see there. There's an application called Google Trends, and it measures the number of times a keyword has been searched. So it provides us with a look into the minds of Australian employees and managers. And because you'll see for Australia, we did the search. We searched for VUCA. And you see that in the GFC around 2008, for the first time, there was a peak in the search for VUCA. And then it continued increasing the number of searches until we've just recently reached another peak. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and it's a term that was popularized by the US Army to describe the chaos of a battlefield. So the military long ago learned that no plan survives contact with the enemy. So this means that at present that management is being pulled in all directions, and the management span of attention, as Goldratt said, is often overwhelmed. And we also know that as the number of priorities that we deal with increase, bad multitasking starts. And by the time we have 6 or more priorities, we actually have no priorities. And the focus just becomes on making money now and not so much on making money into the future. So what can we do to ensure our survival and make sure that we thrive? And that's what today's session is about. Ari, so the next slide, please. Okay, so not only is our situation very volatile, but the productivity here in Australia, and indeed in the rest of the world, is a vexing problem. We've had numerous commissions and expert panels investigating the reasons why we are unable to improve further with various recommendations, and didn't really seem to make a difference. So the graph that you see in front of you is one from McKinsey's, and it deals with worldwide mining productivity starting in 2004. So they started off with a base level of 100. And what you see as time goes by around 2010, we had a drop of 40% in the productivity. And that is across all mining jurisdictions right across the world. Just incidentally, in the late 1990s, ERP systems became widely used around the world. And you would expect that with all this information that senior management have, that they would be able to do so much better decision making. And not just that, but I mean, from all the admin personnel that were made redundant, you would think that in general, the cost savings would be so much better. And yet it's not. So next slide, please. So employee engagement, if you look at Gallup's State of the Global Workplace investigations, you see actually a somewhat shocking graph. I mean, in Australia and New Zealand, and it's the same in the rest of the world, the proportion of highly engaged employees have dropped drastically from 24% to 14% in 2017, which is the last time that this poll has been done. We'll get the next one shortly. So, well, the employee engagement has fallen off a cliff. And if you go into this information, I know that for mining companies, the worst situation is for frontline leaders. Your senior executives and your frontline workers are not too bad. It's at the level of frontline leaders that the drop has been really tremendous. And I think the answer is that at the top, we've got workers imagined with the executives, where they work with strategy. They're far away from the coalface. And at the bottom, you've got the workers done, which is the reality. And so your frontline leaders are having to bring these two parts together. And with our current way of management, it's a very, very difficult task. So it doesn't work very well. Next slide, please. So Einstein said that we can't solve our problems at the level of thinking that caused them in the first place. And this graph here shows you the utility to society of new paradigms as they develop over time. So each age builds on the best of what came before until it hits a yellow bubble. And you'll see there on the picture, it says, the yellow bubble is a crisis period when the old methods struggle to solve today's problems, leading to the emergence of new solutions eventually. So in the industrial age, we had the ideas of the great car companies such as Ford and General Motors, which set the stage for tremendous economic and productivity growth. That was the time of, or the ideas of Taylor that was put into practice. But managers still had difficulty in getting crucial information to the decision-making point in good enough time. And then the information age came with wonderful computing power and interconnectivity at a much lower cost. And it allowed us to hard code these mental models that we developed in the industrial age into our organizational processes and behavior. And we believe that our organizations are now caught in that second yellow bubble where it says today, and where the old methods are struggling to deal with the aspirations of society and workers, and where the old methods are delivering diminished results. Now, there are new methods available, but it's very difficult for them to supplant the tried and tested ideas that helped senior managers rise through the ranks. And Max Planck, who was one of the founders of quantum physics, said, an important innovation rarely makes its way by winning over or converting its opponents. What does happen is that the opponents gradually die out. And in the business environment, it would mean that our competitors holding on to the old ideas go bankrupt. That's the only way that the new ideas can take hold. Next slide, please, Ari. So what can we do about this? And what you see in front of you is the Cynefin framework by Dave Snowden. It explains the world of complexity. And this model in front of you divides the type of decisions that management needs to make and the kinds of decisions that work better in which quadrant or domain. So each domain differs in the type of decision making that delivers the best results. On the right-hand side, we have the ordered domain, and on the left, we call unordered. So for unordered, there's no immediate apparent relationship between cause and effect, and the way forward is determined based on emerging patterns. The ordered world, on the other hand, is the world of fact-based management. And this is the world that we are very familiar with. This is where we maintain stability so to be able to satisfy our customers regarding their needs for free, perfect, and now. And on the left-hand side, we have the non-linear effects and the surprises that confound the stability that we aim for and that we need. And COVID-19 is a good example of something that comes from the unordered environment and throws a curveball, and it's an unexpected surprise causing workers and managers tremendous stress and pain. So how do we deal with this? And this will be my second last slide. Next slide, Ari. So we will argue that to be successful in making money now and also in the future, we need to have both stability and agility in our organization. So we need to balance the two. And if we do not have stability, we will overload the managerial span of attention, and we will lose our ability to be agile and handle the curveballs and the volatility that gets thrown at us. Now, in most businesses, the same management team that's fighting the fires and trying to manage the day-to-day operations is the team that's responsible for formulating and executing strategy. And in most businesses, they're the people that work the longest hours, have the longest queues of outstanding tasks and decisions, and that everyone else is waiting for. So in other words, they are the constraints in both the operational and strategic value streams. And here's the major problem. On the right-hand side, for the audit and the stability, we need protective capacity. And without protective capacity, we cannot maintain our stability. And this is something that Ari will shortly go into much more detail. But protective capacity, which means buffers, production capacity, management capacity, is often deemed in a cost accounting system and in best practice to be wasteful. And unfortunately, in a world where we try, paradoxically, when we try and optimize everything inside our span of control, we lose stability and we become incapable of creating and maintaining the agility we need to adapt and to adjust. Next slide, final slide, Ari. So to make money now and into the future, management needs to deliver on strategy and operations tactics. So Ari will now deal with in much more detail on the tactics side, which is the how and the why. So thank you very much, Ari. It's over